At SmartStream, we pride ourselves on having invested many decades of experience in serving the financial institutions globally. And what we found within that world is that the understanding of financial markets data, or as I term it, the ontology of the data, is absolutely critical to be able to serve the emerging trends within the market. You've got to be able to consume vast quantities of data. It's got to be possible to onboard and ingest that data and process it. But not only that, that part of the onboarding is very early. You've got to then be able to consume that data, process it, and actually have the robust processes and the transparency around it to be able to satisfy not only your internal control and compliance, but also external regulatory oversight. And this is a huge investment that we have made in our organization and in our solutions. We've been driving that and delivering that to the financial institutions, and more recently, diversifying that across the non-bank financial institutions, so the fintechs, the payment service providers, the telcos. And we really do see that as being one of the big growth areas within the Asian market. So in summary, our solutions have been designed to process multiples of millions of records, onboard that data, deliver real-time functionality, deliver huge transparency and control and robustness across the financial and the non-financial institutions, thereby underpinning our commitment to the banking community globally, the non-bank community globally, but also the Asian community globally. So when we start to look at the ways in which the market is evolving and innovating, some of the key challenges that we find are around the innovation is the speed with which data is effectively arriving at organizations, the need for organizations to be able to onboard and ingest that data, but also to be able to process it. And some of that can actually be relatively easily processed by human intervention, looking at it or applying our standard rules, because we fundamentally understand financial markets data. Some people call it domain reconciliations, which is actually far more complex than simply processing something like an inter-systems reconciliation, matching a record with another record. When you understand the underlying ontology of financial markets data, you now understand that matching can be one-to-many, one-to-one, many-to-many, etc. And that drives a lot more complexity, particularly when you start analyzing the problems of innovation or the challenges or opportunities. One of the biggest investments that we've been making recently is in the areas of AI and our new product called Affinity, our new offering. And really what that does is in the area of supervised learning and unsupervised learning, we're driving the approach of analyzing not only what people do to deliver positive outcomes for the organization, but also what the data tells us. And why is this really critical? Well, one of the biggest challenges you have is when you're onboarding and ingesting data, not all of it is recognizable and to the human eye. So by applying our AI and the affinity techniques, we're able to analyze that data, we're able to onboard that data, and we're able to explain and give people the ability to understand why was that data processed, why was it matched, why was it reconciled with other data that potentially we recognize within our systems. And this explain functionality is applicable and available to internal audit. It's available to the users, but it's also available to the external regulators. And this really makes it possible for us to take full responsibility for the life cycle of the data from ingestion through processing all the way ultimately to control and compliance. And that gives you a full control of the life cycle and the cost. When you've got control of the life cycle and the cost, you can then focus on your margin, your operations, and your profitability. So ultimately, this is where we see the industry going, being able to use innovative technologies to drive efficiencies and to actually be able to monetize those and drive those to the bottom line of every financial and non-bank financial institution that we work with.